Howdy, everybody. Welcome back to an updated form of the training. We've had one form of checkpoint training since January. And as you know, things change little by little at the checkpoints with our procedures and practices and new things we learn. And so it's time for an update. And that's what we have for you here. This will be good for both people who have been at the checkpoint already and are experts. And it will also be almost everything you need to know for if you're serving here for the first time. So first of all, it's important to let you know we really appreciate you. Thank you for everything you've been doing. Everything has gone so well at our checkpoints. We're bringing through about 1,000 to 1,500 people per day. And that all continues to go very smoothly. We get so many compliments about how well things are working. So thank you so much for everything you're doing to make that entry process work for our students and faculty and staff. So we've had line facilitators, but we've updated that position just a little bit. As you have probably noticed, we've taken the line facilitator out of the schedule because someone now is going to be assigned separately as a line facilitator. And that person's job, so you're aware of what's happening, even though you likely won't take that position, but you need to be aware of what they're doing. They're going to start out by greeting people as they come in the door. And they're going to confirm that they've completed a health declaration. And if the person coming in has not completed the health declaration, they're going to help them to do that. And then they're going to be like the third base coach, sending people to home as they direct them to open stations. So sometimes people can see an open station and they'll go there, but sometimes they need a little help, and that's what the line facilitator will do. Their job is also to answer your questions. So you can think of them as like the first level expert. Some of you are like PhDs in checkpoint, and so that's awesome. But if you have a question, don't feel like you're alone. That people at the other checkpoints, but definitely the line facilitator can help and act sort of like a team lead. So if you've been working at the checkpoint since June, you know we used to have a long set of questions, and it keeps getting shorter, which means the process keeps getting faster, which is a good thing. And so the latest version is you ask somebody for their name, or you might say, what's your name? Or you might ask them to spell their name because you're going to have to type it in. And you're going to ask, what buildings are you visiting today? And then ask them to take a sticker and to have a great day. And so that's about it. Now, you might say, well, what about that question? Have you received an isolation notice? And you don't need to ask that anymore because we're going to know. If they received an isolation notice, they won't even be able to complete a health declaration, which means they won't show up on your list. And so we don't have to ask about that anymore. It was really confusing anyway, so that question is completely gone. All you have to do is ask for their name and their building that they're visiting. So what do you do when you sit down at the computer? Well, you look for the link to the dashboard and you are going to double click on that link, and it's going to open up the web browser with a login. And so this is where you're going to enter your username and password, and it's the same one you use for all of your LSC stuff. And one note about that, you should have this moment should be the first time you're ever entering your username and password on this computer. If you're starting the computer, if you're waking it up or starting it up in the morning and it asks for a username and password, you should not be using your username and password because that logs you into that computer, and it means anybody who comes after you has access to your stuff. So don't do that. If you're turning the computer on in the morning, or if you're opening up a new laptop, use the M-Maverick login that's on the laptop. Also, if you walk up to a computer and you notice that the web browser is already open and the dashboard is already active, go ahead and close it and then log in as yourself. So once you do that, you're going to see this screen. And so this screen has a pie chart. If you really are interested and want to dig into that pie chart, then go ahead. And it's got a few numbers at the bottom. Really, all you need to know here, most people go past this screen really quickly, is first of all, make sure you click on MC screeners. That's MC is for the Montgomery campus. And if you don't click on that, you'll be searching the check-ins for other campuses. So make sure you've clicked on Montgomery MC screeners. And then the big green number at the bottom left, you're going to click on that. And so when you click on that, you should go to the screen you're going to use all day. Some people get a weird error, so I want to talk about that for a second. This especially happens when it's your first time to check in. And if it is, then you might need to do this one-time fix. So if you're working for the first time, or if you've never done this before, you might want to go in and look at the upper right corner, and you see here my name, and there's a little gear. So you'll see your name, and next to that is a gear. Click on that, and then you'll see a screen like this. And right in the middle of that screen is a button for dashboards. So if you'll click on that, and then in the upper right corner of that window, click the X, and you'll either need to reload the browser or just close the browser and open it again. And once you do that, everything should be set up and you won't get that error anymore. Okay, so after you've done that once, and you really should have to do that once for forever, but when you log in, you'll see a screen like this, and this is the screen you're going to work from. And this has all the health declarations that have been submitted for the day at Montgomery, at Conroe, and at the University Center. And remember, this is the entry of everybody's personal health information. So just like everything on this process, please keep all this confidential. Okay, so when somebody walks up, they'll come to your station as the line facilitator directs them. And then you are going to ask them to take their temperature at the temperature kiosk. And once that turns out okay, then you're just going to ask them for their name. And so you're going to type it into the search box, just like I did here with my name. One of the things you want to make sure is that search box says for text. That'll search everything. If you don't click on that and switch it to for text, you might have some problems finding their name. It won't show up. So before you hit enter to search for somebody's name, change that to for text. Okay, so then once their name comes up, you want to make sure that anybody who's a student or an employee is not listed as a visitor. So if you notice, some of these next to them in the second column say LSC visitor check-in. So if somebody's truly a visitor, if this is their first time to campus, they're trying to sign up for classes for the first time, or they're a vendor or some kind of contract worker, then they will show up as a visitor. If it's a student or an employee, they should show up you should see their name in that column. So please make sure that that's happening. That's very important, that all students and employees log in with their LSC username and password, and then they'll show up on this list. We need to know, especially we see this with students, we need to know that those students have logged in, because that's going to keep the campus safe and make sure we keep track of anybody who's on a quarantine. So if a student walks up and is in a terrible rush, they're in the last 2 minutes before their exam, they're panicked, they are having all kinds of technical issues on the computer, and they just need to go, you can use the visitor check-in. You can allow them to use the visitor check-in as an absolute last resort. But if you do that, we're going to ask you to do one more step. And so as the person at the checkpoint, there's going to be another link on the desktop, and it's going to be called Student Login Issues. And when you open that, you're going to see a form, again, in your web browser that looks like this. And so it's going to super simple. All you have to do is type the student's name, type the student's email, type their ID number, and then describe what the problem was in the box at the bottom. So if it says if they forgot their password, they forgot their password. If it says they were getting an error message, then type something about that error message. The only information you really need from the student is their ID number. Everything else, their first name, their last name, and their email, you can actually just copy over from the health declaration site. So you can, if you're nimble with the browser window, you can go ahead and copy that, put it over here. This is an extra step, but we really appreciate if you can fill this out whenever there's a student that is filling out a visitor form. And it's going to allow us to do two things. First of all, if they're having a technical issue, it's going to connect them with OTS, and OTS can help them to solve that technical issue so that they can have access to their accounts like they should. It's also going to help us to track, because there might be some students that occasionally abuse the system and fill out the LSC visitor check-in to just to avoid logging in or to even avoid a quarantine. So please make sure that you fill this out and submit it, and then we can track that a little bit better. Okay, so after you've confirmed that they're logged in correctly, then you should see this screen with the information on the health declaration that was submitted. And so if you don't see it, a few things to check. Make sure, like we talked about, that you've switched the search to for text. You might also check the spelling of their name. If you didn't spell their name correctly, it won't come up. You should also confirm that the campus is properly selected. So if you choose the wrong campus, they might not show up. And you can also, speaking of campus, confirm that the student submitted the form for the correct campus. It's not unusual for someone to pick a different campus, to pick North Harris or Cy-Fair or Atascocita, and then show up at our campus and be surprised that their form isn't arriving. You need to make sure that they chose Montgomery. And another common issue is that they don't fill out the form today. And then it also helps if you make sure that they got a green go sign when they completed their form. If they get this on their phone or on their computer, something that says stop, do not proceed, they cannot come on campus. This means either they have COVID, they've been exposed to COVID, or they're currently on a quarantine. So if you see that red stop sign, do not allow that person on campus. If everything's okay and you find them, what you're going to do next is click on the time that it was created. You're going to be super tempted to click on their name, but if you click on the time it was created, you will happily proceed to the next step. If you click on their name, you'll be sad because you'll go to a place you don't really want to go. And that's okay. You can fix it, but just click on the time, and that will bring you to this screen. And this screen is the information that goes with that person and what they entered on their health declaration. So again, remember this is confidential. And the things you're going to scan this screen for are the kiosk location, the questions, whether or not they have a diagnosis of COVID, whether or not they've been exposed to COVID, and then you're looking to see if they listed any symptoms. You're going to enter something into the work notes, and then you're going to click update. So that's all you're doing on the screen. It usually goes very fast. So the first thing you're going to look at on that screen that we just left is the kiosk location. So be sure to check that they're logging in at the right place. A lot of people don't know which building is B and which one is H. Some people are choosing even other locations. So check this and confirm that they've entered the right place. And if they haven't, just go into the window and type over the B or type over the H, and that will fix it. There are no options if they enter the wrong campus. So if they selected Conroe Center or if they selected North Harris or anything like that, then they have to fill out a new form. And this seems like a little thing, but this can affect whether or not they get quarantined. There have been people who have been accidentally quarantined because they've entered the wrong information. So please make sure that they've helped them by making sure that they've entered the right information. Okay, these next questions are super important to check. If they answer yes to either of those first two questions, then they cannot come on campus. If they list any symptoms, they cannot come on campus. So what you should see for most everybody are the answers no, no, and a blank. If you see a yes in either of the first two, or if you see any symptoms listed, that person is not allowed to come on campus. Now, it's not uncommon. I think a lot of people have had this experience where it's difficult to click the right thing on the form. And so it's not uncommon for people to accidentally choose the wrong answer. So if you see a yes, or you see some symptoms listed, there's no need to worry or to spray the person with disinfectant spray. All you have to do is check to make sure that they enter the correct answers. If they made a mistake, if they say, oh no, I meant to say no, that's fine. Just ask them to complete a new health declaration before they come in, because we cannot allow them to enter campus until they do. And if it's not a mistake, they're going to have to leave campus until that gets cleared. Sometimes that situation and that conversation is tough. If it is, feel free to contact the administrator on campus for the day so that they can help you out and help to explain to that student what's going on. The next piece you're going to do on this form is to fill in the work notes. So just click in that box, and this is when you ask, what buildings are you visiting? And you don't have to get fancy. There's no need to write poetry. There's no need to write a lengthy essay. You can just type in building F, or you can type all buildings, anything that makes sense. This is for later so that we can help understand where a person's been if they test positive for COVID and we need to follow up on track and trace. And you can also use that box to type in anything you want. If that student came in and was had a young child with them, or if you turn them away for some reason, or there's anything out of the ordinary and you just want to note that, you can do it right there. And then once you're done, it's very important to click post, because as soon as you click the post button, it's going to timestamp this person. We know when they checked in, and that's what we use to do track and trace later. So please click on that post button. And if you want to know if it worked, all you have to do is look down at the activities section of the window, and you can see that it added a second box. There will be another box underneath that person's name, and that means they're set and all ready to go. And the last piece you have to do is either on the bottom left or on the top right, click one of those update buttons, and that form will submit. You'll go back to the window for a search, and you can start over with the next person. Now, one of the things I like to talk about is, what if something goes wrong? The tool we're using is wonderful because it's so configurable and it has so many options. The downside of that is you might accidentally click on something you didn't want to click on. And so there's a couple of ways to get out of that. So one of them is at the top left of the screen, you can click on that little arrow to go back if that's available, and that'll just bring you back to the previous screen. But if you get somewhere where you have no idea what's happening, just close the tab or close the browser, and you can start all over, and you'll be right back where you wanted to be. Okay, a few other reminders before we wrap this up. First of all, the binders have everything you want to know. You need to contact an administrator, it's in there. You want to look at schedules, it's in there. You want to get some answers to questions that have been coming up recently, we have those in there as well. Also, always remember that we have 2 administrators on campus every day specifically assigned to the checkpoints. Their job is to help you out. So make sure you're aware of that. Their contact information is in the binder. Contact them if something goes on that you need help with. Another thing that's so important is to follow the rules of safety that we have for the campus at the checkpoint especially. We used to have to quarantine anyone who was exposed to a COVID positive person at the checkpoint, but we have permission to not do that now because we are so careful about the safety rules and we're so efficient with the process. So what that means is wear your mask, stay behind the sneeze guard, keep your distance away from those people, don't touch the person on the other side, and don't exchange things. At this point, there's no need for them to hand you paper or for them to give you any kind of ID. There's no need to touch anything. So keep your distance, keep your social distancing rules, everything. That'll keep you safe. It'll keep them safe. It'll allow us to continue to make this easy for everybody. And also remember to smile and be kind. You're the first impression that somebody has when they come on our campus. So even if they're having a bad day, do what you can to make it happy. They are coming to Lone Star College Montgomery. Help them to know that that's who we are. We're a place where it's enjoyable to be. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching this. And one last request before I leave you here is to send me an email to the mc-special@lonestar.edu account. And somewhere in that email, if you would just say Astros. And in fact, if that's the whole email, if you just say Astros in an email, I'll know it came from you and I'll know that you completed watching this. And that just helps us to understand how many people have finished this and how many people we need to get the word out to. So thank you for watching. Thank you for everything you do. I hope the rest of your semester goes well, and we really appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you.